executive session to order. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Katie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, agenda approved. I believe we're on to study items, and our first item is construction bid reviews by Chris. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, Chris, you've got the floor. And you're on mute.
Of course. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out for this evening. We've got some, we're very excited. We have received the bids and have evaluated the submissions, and we're here this evening to discuss those with you and also to make to you a recommendation. We won't ask you to approve anything tonight. That will be on the second read on the regular board meeting on May 20th. But we would like to discuss the various aspects of this project and the bidders that we received. So with that, I will introduce Todd Powers and Julie Villa from Ittner, our architectural firm. And they've been instrumental in this process, guiding us as a district and also guiding this bid process to make sure that we are reviewing all of the necessary things to make the best decision with the information we have. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Todd.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Good evening, everyone. Can I share my screen? Not yet. All right. I'm going to be looking to my left to my larger monitor here. You should all be seeing a spreadsheet. It says bid tabulation. Is this legible, or do I need to blow it up a little bit?
I think it works.
Works? Okay. Just want to make sure you can read the numbers. Okay. So as Chris mentioned, we did receive and open bids yesterday. We received 6 qualified bids from a variety of general contractors. And we opened them in alphabetical order. We had bids from Beck's Construction, who is familiar with some Maplewood projects from the past. BSI Constructors, Holland, ICS, Trico, and Wachter. And these were all contractors that we are familiar with. They run the gamut from small to rather large. So you get really quite a good cross-section of folks interested in this project. So as you can see, kind of moving from left to right, we went through and checked all of their basic criteria. For public projects, we always require a bid bond, which was 5% of the value of the bid. All bidders submitted those. They were required to submit qualifications, which is what A305 means. And today we spent a lot of time going over the SOV, or schedule of values, which was due today at 2 o'clock. So with not all the bidders, we did not meet with all the bidders. We met with the 2 lowest bidders on each of the middle school, high school projects, and then the elementary and ECC. And you can see that some contractors elected to bid all, where we have a number in every category, and others elected to either bid the large project or the small projects together. So Bex, as you can see, for instance, they no bid on the high school, middle school, but they offered you bids on the elementary and the ECC. So BSI bid all the projects, Holland bid all the projects, ICS and Trico only bid the large project, and then Wachter only bid the small projects. We also offered a combined option to the bidders, and 2 of them took advantage of that, or actually 3. Wachter actually offered you a combined price and a slight discount if you awarded them the number 2 and number 3 projects, but not the high school. So that's over here. Since that wasn't a standard part of the bid form, they basically made a small edit and wrote that number in. So we read that separately. We also had 3 alternates in the bid process. 2 of them are at the high school, middle school. One is toilet rooms on stacked floors in the middle school section of the building, which is currently right now a corridor pass-through area. And that would be converted to restrooms. That was an alternate, an ad alternate. We have an ad for replacing door hardware, existing door hardware, on all of the classrooms in the high school, middle school that don't already have a specific type of lock for security purposes. And then the last one was really placed in there primarily to deal with, there's a storm structure on the elementary site, which is MSD hadn't weighed in whether it would need to be replaced or not. They needed to see it before they could evaluate it. So we wanted to make sure we had a price in place in case that work needed to occur. And you can see that's a fairly small alternate. It's somewhere between $5 to $6,000. So that's the tabulation of all the bids that we did open. On the high school, middle school, the lowest bid came in from Trico Commercial here at 19.1. Second low was ICS, then BSI, and then Holland on the high side. On the elementary and ECC projects, Wachter was low on both projects, the elementary and ECC, followed relatively closely by Bex, and then a little bit of a jump to BSI and then on up to Holland. So these folks, 5 and 6, the 5th and 6th bidders did have the low bids. So we spent some time today. We started at 1 o'clock and we finished about an hour ago, actually. We interviewed all 4. So we interviewed Bex, then Wachter on the smaller projects, ICS, then Trico on the larger projects. We asked them at a minimum these 12 questions, and which of course took us into tangent questions and commentary. So most of our interviews lasted anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour plus. And of course, we spent the most time with the low bidders, and we spent the most time with Trico because we really wanted to vet their bid because they're the low bid on the big project. I won't dive into any of the details unless anyone has a specific question, but you know, we drill down into their history, which Ittner is very familiar with for most of these folks, but we want to make sure that Maplewood heard their background, who their personnel were going to be, how they were going to approach the job, any concerns they had about schedule. And as everyone knows, kind of the current state of affairs in material availability, price escalation, lead times. We spent an awful lot of time talking about that, how we're going to address those kind of concerns. If there were going to be any perceived jurisdictional issues with the unions. Did they, you know, we want to make sure they know everybody they're working with. So hopefully they didn't include any new folks. Most of them knew their subs quite well. And then a few other questions more about their bid or kind of the specific requirements of the specs. And then a question about safety, and in particular their COVID policies. And then we ended with you know, addressing any of their concerns. So pretty exhaustive process that we went through. And I'm going to go back to the bid tab here just to show you how everything breaks out. So budget targets, these numbers in blue are numbers that Chris and I have been tracking all along through these projects. These were the latest budget targets for the various projects. So 19.6, 1.6, 557, and the combined total of those. We embedded within each bid a contingency allowance, which is a portion of, so we had asked and have been carrying in the budget all along a 5% construction contingency or greater. Some of that money we went ahead and embedded into the contractor's bids to take care of, you know, some of the various what ifs, of course, that, you know, we're going to find in renovation work. This is not all of the contingency that Maplewood is carrying. Again, it's a smaller percentage. So within the high school, middle school bid, there's 350,000 embedded in their price, 75 in the elementary and 25 in ECC. So $450,000 embedded overall. So an on budget bid right on the money would have been 19,959, 791 for the high school, middle school. You can see 1.7, 582, and a total of 22,247. So we went ahead and then plugged in our low bids. So our low bid from Trico on the high school is 19.1. On budget was actually 19.9, which means you're around 800,000 to the good. So that's why Chris said we were excited. We were quite excited. Given the volatility in the market, we were concerned that there'd just be too much bidder uncertainty. But we were pleased to get this bid. And then on the elementary, Wachter's low bid was 1.5, and again we came out about 180,000 to the good. And they were pretty close on the ECC too, came out just a little bit on the red side, just a little bit. But overall, when you add up the pluses and the minuses, including the contingency allowances that are in the bids, you're about $960,000 again to the good. So, which means you've got a nice contingency reserve to cover these what ifs and the dealings we're going to have with 100-year-old buildings. So we're pleased about that. We went ahead and added the alternates from up top, the toilet rooms. Again, Chris stated today, and he's absolutely correct. While these were alternates, they really are things that you need, certainly these first two. So we went ahead and put in the price for the alternate, number 1, number 2, and number 3. Which does bring down that surplus a little bit, but we're still looking at a number in the range of $760,000. So again, we were very pleased with the bids yesterday, and excited that we're going to be able to move forward with some wiggle room to work with. So as far as the bidders themselves, again, like I said, we interviewed all the 4 low. And there's a bit of difference between Trico and ICS, and we spent a lot of time talking about that spread between 19.1 and 20.5. Obviously, we drilled down on Trico primarily. They identified some areas where they had differences with the other bidders, but essentially in the end, Trico feels that they have a good bid, a solid bid, a number they can work with, a number they will stand behind. Mr. Charles and Ittner both have some construction experience with Trico, fairly recent. I've done a number of projects with them personally over the years. So while we were a little bit concerned about that spread, Trico has built projects of this nature. In fact, they built Lindbergh's Dressel Elementary for Ittner and for Lindbergh about 5 years ago. That was a $22 million project. It's a very nice building if you haven't been in it. As with all projects, it had some challenges, but in the end, it's an award-winning school, and Trico built it. So we have every hope and confidence that they're going to carry on that tradition here on the Maplewood project if you choose to grant them that contract. On bid packages 2 and 3 with Wachter, I know that those bids are quite a bit closer, but I can tell you we do an extensive amount of work with Wachter. Although Maplewood hasn't worked with them anytime recently, they do a significant amount of schoolwork, and the $2 million project is absolutely in their wheelhouse. I actually have 2 projects going with them this summer at Lindbergh. They're also at Webster Groves and the special school district. So they are quite busy, and they live in the $2 to $3 million project range. That is absolutely their comfort level. So Wachter was, for us, that is an easy call. We enjoy working with these folks and would recommend them for any school project, certainly at this magnitude. So I know I've talked a lot. Are there any questions now that I've blah blahed you for a while? What can I answer for you?
Anyone have any questions? I thought that was pretty thorough. I came in with some questions about the no bid and you answered them right off the top. So
Okay. Well, while you're thinking a little bit, as Chris mentioned, we aren't asking you to obviously make your formal decision. We would ask you, however, if you would consider, given that the bidders, especially for the 2 small summer projects, are on a tight time frame. They would love to get at least a nod that things might move in their direction in the form of a letter of intent. Again, not the formal contract, but a letter of intent, which essentially would allow the contractors to start their shop drawings, get things moving, and get some commitments made to some of the subs that, hey, we're going to be giving you a subcontract here after the board takes action on the 20th, but you can go ahead and get your paperwork going, get it in order. Like I said, that's really important to the 2 smaller projects because of the tight time frame. And also some of these subs have really limited the time in which they will hold their pricing given market volatility. So if the board would see fit, we would hope that you might let Chris and I put together some letter of intent the notice of intent to award a contract to Wachter and Trico, and that therefore they can move forward.
I think we would have to vote on it first. Is that right? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if the recommendation is the same and there aren't questions, I mean, I'm open to modifying the agenda tonight to make a decision about that specifically. Obviously, we don't want to do that hastily, but it seems like it may be one of those things that's in the best interest of the financial stewardship.
Well, let me explain. The only real risk you run in giving them a notice of intent as opposed to the actual contract award is that they're going to expend a little bit of money if they start their shop. Let's say they start their aluminum storefront shop drawings. They're going to be committing a little bit of money for someone to start drawing that information. Now, there's not a lot of time between now and the 20th, so we're not looking at a lot of time spent. It's really more about the contractor putting the subs on notice that they'd like to lock in these prices, whatever the price might be on steel or asphalt or something, because we've heard that some of these guys put prices into their bids and said this price is good for 5 days.
Right.
So that's tight. So you're not committing to the full contract. We're just basically letting them move forward with a little bit of good faith, if that helps.
It does. I think we'd have to still amend the agenda and vote on it, but is anybody
Yes,
against that? Okay, I think we could do that today.
Another important aspect that can't go unmentioned is materials availability. When it comes to the tight timelines that we've set for both the ECC and the elementary projects, the sooner our contractors are able to start making, and their subs are able to start getting orders made, the more likely it is that we're going to be able to hit our scheduled targets. As Todd's already said, the materials availability is unknown at this point. We are hoping for the best, but the sooner we can get those things on order, the better.
I just have a quick question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Maria.
No, you go ahead, Amber.
Just along those lines, Chris, I know that neither firm that bid every project has the lowest bid. I'm just curious if there are any efficiencies to be gained by going with a firm that can do every part of the project.
As far as the economies of scale,
Yeah, just in looking at materials availability and the tight timeline. I mean, obviously, it's in our financial interest to go with the lowest bidder, but in just looking at the cost differences, I'm new to the project, except for
Sure.
what I've viewed as a spectator at board meetings. But I just wanted to ask that question, if there is anything to be gained by going with a contractor who can do every portion of the project.
Maybe you could talk about why we bid the elementary and ECC separately and the time span difference between the scope of the larger project, because we did bid them separately to try to get a better price. So could you explain that?
Yes, so, yeah, we obviously, we separated because we thought you would, one, you would draw, as I said, different scale of contractors. And as you can see how the numbers shook out, the smaller contractors have the better prices because generally they have the lower overhead. And that's not going to be universal, because a big contractor can do anything they want to lower their margins and win a job. But generally speaking, the smaller contractors have an advantage, which is why we separated these. We thought that some of the smaller folks would really be attracted to the smaller packages, and it turned out that that was true. That's why you're seeing the low bids on, like, the Wachter, for instance, only focused on the small projects and won them by some fairly narrow margins. In fact, if you look at the ECC, the spread there is only $400. So that's just about as tight as a bid can be. I understand what you're saying about the efficiencies, and there certainly could be, but unfortunately, to get you to the lowest bidder who bid all three projects, you're talking about a $2 million spread. So I think any efficiency is lost in the fact that the larger contractor has the higher margins, the higher overhead and profit and needs, as you can see here for BSI.
Thank you for
So,
elaborating on that. That's very
sure.
helpful.
I think historically having that variance, having some cushion has really been useful and helpful in any construction project that we've done, and this being one of the the largest one that I've ever been a part of. I think, having that 700 plus thousand sort of variance there is really a compelling factor for me. I'd be one that, if we're mending the agenda to vote on a letter of intent, I mean, I don't have questions. I would certainly respect other board members if they want to wait, but 2 weeks seems like an eternity in the construction field these days, just because there's so much happening and there's so much activity. So, I mean, if that, it might not gain us a whole lot, but I'd be comfortable moving forward with this recommendation as a actual contracting vote.
Thank you, Todd. Are we ready to move on to the next agenda item? Okay, Roxana, I believe you're giving us a athletics update.
I am, and I think Kevin might be in the waiting room, and I don't know if Amber Jordan is as well, in case you have questions. There is an attachment there, basically, and I can go ahead and share my screen so that if anybody's at home, they can follow along. But basically, the county has slightly changed guidance towards the end of April. And so the high school has asked for two specific proposed changes that are in alignment with the county guidance changes, and that actually provide some relief and opportunity for our athletes. So they are specifically asking that our outdoor sports teams that are playing, which would be baseball, soccer, and track, not have to wear face masks when they are on the field. And again, that is in accordance with county guidance. They've lifted quarantine even for students who are in those scenarios. And I know that we're hearing with the weather getting hotter, that it is becoming problematic outside on really warm days. So that is request number one. Again, that is well within county guidance, and I think consistent with what we now know about safety and mitigation measures as an outdoor sport. The other request that they are asking for is that on senior night for baseball, which is May 11th, and senior night for soccer, which is May 13th, that they be able to follow the county guidance regarding spectators and have each athlete be allowed to bring 2 spectators, which would have to pre-register with our office so that we would have information for contact tracing, sit in designated areas 6 feet apart, and remain masked for the entire competition, which I also am sure is within county guidance. Both seem like reasonable requests. I do not think that you have to vote in order for us to enact these changes, but I did want to be very transparent and give you an opportunity to ask questions or have dialogue if you're not comfortable with those 2 requests. Any questions for myself or Kevin?
Roxana, this is how they've been doing it in some of the professional sports teams as well. Is that correct? Like I've seen them when they're on the field, they're not wearing masks. When they're sitting, they are. And they've allowed spectators to start joining.
Correct. And I would say we are probably at this point, if not the only, we're probably the only remaining school district that hasn't made the switch to this guidance. I can't say that with certainty, but I do know that most of the folks that we are playing are already following these guidance. And then this last slide is just a reminder that all of these other mitigating strategies will remain in place. The only request change that they're making is that while they're on the field, they not wear the mask. And for these 2 particular outings, they be allowed to bring a spectator, 2 spectators per athlete.
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you, Roxana.
Yeah, just really quickly. Sorry, I didn't unmute fast enough. No questions, just a thank you. As someone who lives and breathes this every day as a parent, and I've certainly gotten an earful from some of our community members about it. Special thanks for this consideration, Kevin, and to Amber, and to our coaches who I think have done a magnificent job through some really challenging times. I've got to witness it firsthand and just thought it was important to let Kevin, if you can just share with them just our gratitude on behalf of the board for the way they've handled this season.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next agenda item is board committee and liaisons. So the reason we've added this to the agenda is because we've had some changes. Am I breaking up or can you guys hear me? Okay. We've had some significant changes, and so we always reset the committees as well. We're not making any decisions today, but I wanted to make sure that if anyone had any questions about any of the committees that are available, that they had a chance to ask them, or if they needed more information, we had a chance to get it to them. And then my hope is that we can reset these committees when we have our regular board meeting. So did anyone have any questions or comments about any of the committees?
Roxana, is the Safe and Inspirational Spaces Committee going to be something that is necessary to move forward? I know that was sort of tied up with the work leading up to Prop E, but probably also some work around, I think there were some things about like active shooter support, trainings for staff and things like that.
We had a lot of things that were happening at the time that committee was formed. Will it be needed in terms of the things that this bond issue is going to address? A lot of those concerns. We have active shooter training embedded. I for those purposes, no. I think it still could be a useful committee if it were talking about school climate and broader safe and inspirational spaces, but that's up to the board. I think it served its original purpose, and it would be up to the board if the board was interested in having something that looked at climate, belonging, those kinds of safe and inspirational.
Okay, and so that's veering more into like some of the conversations we had about like an education equity committee or something like that too, which I think we've said that we're going to revisit once Dr. Jameson is in place. Okay, that's helpful.
I had a question too. I thought we had made a formal Nelson Mitten Scholarship Committee. Does anybody recall? Okay. It doesn't necessarily have to be formal, but we do need someone on it.
Well, and that's some of the stuff that we did when I think we created the committees versus the liaisons. I mean, maybe there is somebody who's the liaison to the scholarship work or something.
Right.
So I think Amber would be fantastic. Here, I'm the one that just said it.
Well, I was about to ask, can you be a liaison if there is no entity that you're liaising with necessarily? And would we want to create an entity like a ad hoc fundraising group? Just throwing it out there.
I think that's definitely something to consider and kind of figure out what we want to do and make that official at the next board meeting if we decide to make it a formal committee.
Do we imagine that CBTF is going to be meeting as frequently as they have the past couple of years? Seems like there's been some serious heavy lifting that Chris and Roxana and others have shepherded. And I know that group was meeting monthly, at least over the past year plus. But again, wondering what that commitment might look like.
I would recommend that we continue to meet monthly. It has taken care of a lot of things that could be potential issues very quickly. And as a result, the meetings have been much shorter than they have been when we've waited. And we've had to have really long meetings that were sometimes, I won't say that our meetings are ever contentious, but there was more heavy lifting than needed to happen because things weren't caught early. So I would recommend that at least during the school year, we meet monthly, and we can talk with the group frequently. We've had some months where we've decided we didn't need to meet, but I do think that regular check-in spread throughout the year has helped us in a way that waiting did not serve.
And I think we just had the meeting, was it last week? I don't know, the weeks all run together. We had a wrap up, and there were some things I thought that the building liaisons were talking about doing that would be more ongoing kind of efforts within CBTF, things that would be more educational and ways in which they can communicate better with their buildings and things like that. So I don't know, might be worth continuing at least a fairly regular session.
Okay, any more on that? All right, next agenda item is board candidate submission. I just want to say thank you to our community, all of the applications that we received, the interest. It just goes to show that the MRH community is just amazing. They really show up and show out every time. And so we're really appreciative to get so many great applications and candidates. If anyone else has anything else they want to say, go ahead.
I had one question. I don't know if one of the candidates in their packet of materials had submitted that they actually wish to be removed from consideration if another candidate actually submitted, and that actually happened. I don't know if anybody from the district has reached out to confirm that candidate wishes to be removed from consideration. They're listed currently, now. I don't want to necessarily, it's Mr. Homa, I believe, is the person, but I mean, I just wanted to make sure that we're, looking at the full slate for next, I guess, the next meeting when we vote on.
We have not done that yet. Would you like us to do so?
I think it would be worth confirming or just making sure that that's the wishes of the candidate.
I concur with Francis, just making sure that we're honoring that candidate's wishes, and then also having the candidates, I guess, available for the next meeting, so that it's my understanding we're going to formally select the candidate.
So can I make a recommendation? As obviously Kat can assist on this, but Brandy, as president, how do you feel about reaching out to these individual candidates just to let them know what the timeline looks like in the process?
I think that's necessary, and I know as a former candidate myself, the more information, the better.
All right. Are you willing to take that and shepherd that then?
I am.
Great. Thank you.
Just let us know if we need to have Kat do anything to assist you, Brandy.
Okay, thank you.
I do appreciate the level of information that was provided by each of the candidates, their willingness to put their hat in the ring. I think we got a good, well-rounded information about each and every one of them. So I appreciate them doing that. And it's tough putting yourself out there like that, and it's a lot to ask. And I think we have 2 new board members that can attest to that as well. So once again, just echoing, Brandy, what you said about our community stepping up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just note too that I think the number of candidates we got is really reflective of the board's visibility in the community and the work that this board's been doing. So I was really gratified to see such a large number of applicants.
It definitely was. Okay, next would be action items. I think we need to have a motion to amend.
Okay, go slow. Okay. Okay, I'm ready.
I move to amend the agenda to have an action item related to the construction bids.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Francis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We need to, Maria, we need to make that
3.01, I guess, right?
Yeah, 3.01.
Yeah, let's make that 3.01. I'm gonna, can I include that in that motion, and then we'll move executive session to 3.02.
Okay.
Move to offer a letter of intent to the low bidders as presented this evening.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Rachel. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next motion.
Oh, who's gonna do it?
How about Rachel?
The newbie.
I hope I'm in the correct place. Is this where I move to enter executive session in
Got it.
accordance with section 610.021, subsection 5, 6, 8, and section 6.1, oh, so hold that thought, 610.022 of the revised statutes of Missouri on May 6, 2021 for the following specific reasons: identifiable student matters.
Excellent. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Amber. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. See
See you in a
you in
sec.
executive session.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.